Josie, we are ready for the first slide. Um, Noel already said basically what we're going to do. We're going to start with, in this moment, what happens now that the dreaded SAVE Act did pass the House. And then we'll be talking about making the most of town halls. What do you do if you've got a supportive member? What do you do if you don't have any member at all? And how to use social media to allow and basically bring more attention to your town halls. Next slide, please.
So we're living
Noel.
in a time right now of great uncertainty, and I'm sure you felt it as the president of our country continues to take executive orders and action that are doing great harm to the people, to our democratic institutions. And many of these executive orders and actions are things that are way beyond the scope of what Constitution gives him as power. Remember, Congress is the one who creates laws that get passed and then signed into law by the president. The president cannot make laws on his own. These executive orders that you are seeing are only orders up to the extent that they are lawful, but they are pretty scary orders, aren't they? They're designed to make us all afraid, to make institutions buckle and bend and comply without having to get to the point of creating and passing a law in Congress. Right now, so many of our communities are hurting from the cuts in funding that affect our health, our food, our children, our very ability to make it in the world. We're sitting here reeling from that at the same time as terrifying abductions of students and suspected gang members, which are ordinary people that have been living and working peacefully, are being taken, whether they're students, whether they're immigrants, and without any due process. And you've probably been following Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case. The Supreme Court has ordered the Trump administration to abide by the lower court ruling that they effectuate his return to the United States. And if you've been following this, they're fighting over words right now while the administration pretends that it has the authority to summarily send a person into effectively incarceration in another country for life. And so as we're looking at what is going on in our country and we're feeling it, we wanted to take a page out of history and think together about what it means, because when these things start happening, and they are happening for real right now, and we're seeing it with our own eyes, we remember when it happens to one of us, it means it will happen to all of us. First, they came for the communists, wrote Pastor Martin Niemöller, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Next slide.
And as difficult as it is to imagine, we are in a period of time that is looking worse than those days. So now, first they came for the immigrants, and I did not speak out because I was not an immigrant. Then they came for LGBTQIA people, and I did not speak out because I was not LGBTQIA. Then they came for federal workers, and I did not speak out because I was not a federal worker. Then they came for people of color, and I didn't speak out because I was not a person of color. Then they came for the poor and elderly, and I did not speak out because I was neither poor nor elderly. Then they came for women, and I did not speak out because I was not a woman. And when they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. And we could add, and they came for the universities. And there are so many people. They came for everybody that was not a rich, straight, white male. We are pushing.
And we are pushing back. And I think the important thing to take heart about is actually we can get paralyzed in these moments with complexity, or we can say we're seeing this with our own eyes and we know it's not right, and we can start acting. We don't need to make it complicated. We need not to be dazzled. We hang on to each other for security and we move forward. And that's what we're doing tonight. And that's why we're here tonight. We're not here to recount horrors. We're here to name what's going on and amass our power so that we can push back. Andrea is going to give us an update on the SAVE Act.
Next slide. The SAVE Act passed the House on April 10th. I love the name of the SAVE Act, Safeguard American Voting Eligibility. There were 216 Republicans and 4 Democrats. Passage was 220 to 208. Hawaii, Texas, Maine, and Washington had a Democratic vote the bill. The SAVE Act then crossed over to the Senate. The Senate has their own version of the SAVE Act. Senate Bill S-128 currently has 23 co-sponsors, Republicans only. Next slide. Now, the SAVE Act really stops Americans from voting. A quick sort of synopsis of what it does is it basically requires proof of citizenship in order to vote. Real ID is not acceptable in 45 states because 45 states did not ever see real ID being used as proof of citizenship. It was, you got real ID, it was transportation identification so you could get on an airplane. So 45 states do not on their real ID list your birth city and or your birth country. It requires a birth certificate, which many rural people and many older voters do not have. Married women who change their name must have a passport to bridge the identity between the name on their birth certificate and their married name. And I was just so upset about it and requires a birth certificate because there's a problem with my birth certificate, which after 7 years, I was finally able to fix. So yes, it stops Americans from voting. We will now take our fight to the Senate. There are groups that are working in the Senate, identifying senators that really should know better, but may not vote better. So I am delighted that one of our senators who foolishly voted for Laken Riley at least every week puts out a I may know on the SAVE Act. So I'm like, thank you for letting us know where you are and that you have corrected your wrong thinking. Next slide. Now, the pressure point is Congress, and that's one of the main reasons why we started Effective Advocate in the first place. What's really important when you deal with your members of Congress, whether they are in their office or they are at a town hall, is you want to speak plainly and clearly. Some of our members of Congress are not necessarily the brightest light bulbs in the basket. So keep it plain, keep it simple. Um, Call them, let them know that if they are going along with this coup, they should not expect to get re-elected. And you expect them to knock power and silence in their office if they are opposed. We expect them to stand up, say something, and do something. Pressure them publicly by saying what they're doing. So thank yous are great. It will encourage members to stand up. All right, I'm seeing their support back home. So, I'm going to take a slightly stronger stance. And if they're not doing anything, if they aren't voting badly, but they're not saying anything, then again, you are elected. You have a pulpit that we as individual citizens don't have. We need you to use it. Show up at protests, organize them in your hometown and at their offices. And if your representatives and senators are doing the right thing, let them know that you have their back and you will stand up for them because they stood up for you. And also, it's their job, it's what they're getting paid to do. Next slide. The importance of town halls. Rachel, take it away.
I'm actually going to jump in. My name's Jay. I am the Workers Circle DC organizer, and I'm going to talk a little bit about town halls, the value of them as activists and advocates, and how you can take this information and bring it back to your home. So I want to start by saying the power of town halls is that they are beautiful accountability mechanisms for your representatives. They allow you to tell your representative exactly what you want them to do and force them in a public forum to admit if they're doing that thing or not doing that thing. We're going to talk a little bit about how we can kind of target specific types of actions for specific types of representatives. But the main thing you need to know is that town halls are powerful because they're public. We'll move to the next slide. So, 4 questions to ask when you're thinking about doing an action related to a town hall. The first is, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Where do you need to move your representative or publicly shame your representative? The second is, who's the host? The third is, what is the venue? And the fourth is, what is the style of the town hall? These final 3 questions are really important for figuring out what your strategy is going to be and how effective you might be if you attend a town hall. We're going to hop into the goals. So you might have a representative who is simply just not showing up in the district. Maybe they say when you talk to them on the phone, oh, I'm having small roundtables with business leaders, but they're not doing any public events, and you haven't had the opportunity to provide your feedback to them because you send them emails and you never hear back. Maybe your representative is wishy-washy. They won't tell you if they're going to vote the right way or the wrong way on the SAVE Act or another bill. Maybe they're telling you and they're telling you they're going to vote the wrong way. Maybe they agree with you and they vote all the right way, but they never speak out publicly and they're not advocating with their peers. Or maybe there's somebody who are always going to vote the wrong way, and you know that from the beginning. What do you do? How does a town hall help you access these people? Next slide. Well, you're going to have different goals depending on who your representative is. If your representative is not showing up, what you can do at a town hall, and by hosting a town hall, is pressure them to show up. If they're voting the wrong way, you can pressure them to change their vote. I've seen it happen. If they are not vocal enough, if they're voting the right way, but they're not speaking out and they're not advocating, you can make it clear that you expect more and you want to see them more vocally in your district. And I think with somebody here who did that exact same thing on a call, Patricia, with her folks, her senator's office, where she was like, let me be clear, I know my senator votes the right way, but we're not seeing her in the district. So I know there are people in here who know how to do that. And the final thing is, well, what do I do? Like, if my representative, my senator, I know they vote the wrong way, they've never supported voting rights, they've never supported democracy. then the power of a town hall is shaming them in the public eye and building public support for opposition of them. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what are the different types of town halls and how does it affect how you're going to organize within them? Well, town halls have lots of different like identities. Some town halls are virtual, some town halls are in person at like a local church or a local town building. Some town halls are on Zoom. Some town halls are organized by community members. Some town halls are organized by legislators themselves. And the reason that all these characteristics are important is because the characteristics of the town hall are going to affect how easy it is to move forward your agenda at that town hall. And if your senator or representative is somebody who doesn't have town halls or who only has town halls which are on Zoom where they mute everybody and they don't allow people to say their piece, then it might be harder to kind of share your perspective and to use the town hall in order to advocate. But in those cases, we have strategies for you to kind of overcome those barriers. But you should, as you start this process, think about what does my senator or representative do now? And what do I want them to do? And how am I going to use what I know about the characteristics of the town hall to kind of shape their actions? Okay, so we're going to move on. So there are 3 different things I want you to think about when you're thinking about your senator or your representative's town hall. The first is the style. 10 years ago, representatives would have town halls, which were open mics, essentially. You would walk into a church basement and there would be 50 people there and anybody could walk up to the mic and ask any question and the representative would respond. Some representatives who have gotten really negative and controversial town halls because of this method have shifted away from that because they realize that it's a bad PR move for them. It's a bad visibility in their community when people are yelling at them at the town hall. So they've moved toward a model which is often like called pre-submitted or pre-selected questions. Either you will pre-submit a question on a Zoom form or ahead of time when you RSVP, or you might just be handed out a note card and you would write questions and then there's somebody at the front who takes all those questions and then they pick out the questions they want their representative to answer. So let me tell you, as somebody who used to work for an elected delegate, I used to work for the General Assembly, I was that person picking out those note cards. We only pick the note cards that make our boss look good, right? So the problem with a pre-selected or pre-submitted style is that you're not going to have the opportunity to fully ask your question and to hold them accountable. They often are the hardest to disrupt if you have a kind of advocacy. But they also allow you to know what is not and not what going in allows you to know what is possible and what is not possible. So it's good to know ahead of time, is it a pre-submitted or an open mic? The final type or style is an empty chair town hall. Empty chair town halls are when your representative or senator is not coming out into the community and soliciting feedback. Or perhaps they are coming out into the community and they're soliciting feedback, but they're only ever doing it in a controlled environment where there's pre-submitted questions and you actually have an organic, democratic way of engaging with them. Empty chair town halls hold elected officials accountable because you say, I've invited my representative to come here on our terms, and they've decided not to listen to the people. These are really important symbolic measures, as well as literal measures to show that your representative is quite literally not showing up. Okay, so these are the styles. There's 2 more things I want to tell you about. Venues. Again, they used to be a lot of in-person town halls before the Zoom age. The wonderful thing about in-person town halls is whether they're pre-submitted questions or not, anybody can come and they can speak their voice. There's no way to mute a person besides taking them out of the room, right? And so if you have a pre-submitted question town hall, but it's in person, you might have the option to organize with some fellows in your community and ask questions, even though you're not being called on. Or a lot of representatives nowadays have Zoom town halls or telephone town halls. Some of them you can unmute freely, but most you get muted and you're not really able to speak. These are really one-way forms of communication and they're not democratic. If your representative has town halls but only use this form of town hall, you might want to organize your own so that you can set the terms of the engagement. Next slide. The other thing you need to consider is who is hosting the town hall. Legislators often host their own town halls and they invite you. But when they do that, they get to set the terms, right? They might say only these types of questions or only 20 minutes for this type of question. When you host a town hall and you invite the legislator to join, you get to set the terms. That's really powerful if you want them to answer questions around your agenda, around democracy or voting rights. Sometimes other community organizations, which might have agendas that are aligned with yours or not aligned with yours, can also host. If they're aligned with yours, it might be an opportunity to work together. If they're not aligned with yours, it might be a reason that you might need to host your own in addition. All right, so we're going to go into a scenario in just a moment. You'll get a chance to think through some scenarios that might exist in your community and how you would handle it as a town hall organizer, using town halls as a way of holding your legislator accountable. Before we get there, I want to give you a kind of decision tree, a set of ways to think about how to use town halls to your advantage. So the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, does my legislator have a town hall scheduled? If they already have a town hall scheduled and it's an open mic town hall, or it's a town hall where you have a feeling that if you ask a good question about the SAVE Act or about a democracy issue, that they'll give you an earnest answer, that they'll consider it, and that they'll make sure that the public hears, then all you have to do is go. That's really great. In fact, if you're one of these people, you probably have one of the few great legislators who's pretty good on these issues. If you're like many others, you might not have someone. You might know that they're only going to do a telephone town hall, which is only one way. They will never ask a question. They will never solicit or read aloud a question on democracy. Then you have a couple options. One thing you can do is you can disrupt their town hall. Disruption sounds kind of scary, but it's really just a mechanism of holding your representative accountable in the public forum that they've created, right? If they really truly want to hear from constituents, and they would say that they do, then they should be able to answer any question a constituent asks, not just the pre-selected ones. So what you can do is you can disrupt the town hall. That might mean standing up and asking a question if you've not been asked. Or it might mean organizing a group of people to come up to the representative at the end of the night and ask them some additional questions. Or optionally, if it's a Zoom town hall and it's only one way, you might have to organize a town hall of your own. So if they don't have a town hall scheduled, you can host your own town hall. And the nice thing about this is that you don't actually have to make the choices. They get to make the choices for themselves. If they decide to come, it will not be an empty chair town hall, and you'll get an opportunity to set the agenda and ask the questions that you want to ask about democracy issues and voting rights. If they choose not to engage with you or your group, that's fine. You make it a public spectacle. You make them feel shame for not showing up in their community where their constituents have questions. The cool thing about town halls is that whatever path you take on this decision tree, you are successful holding your elected official accountable. Whether you want them to speak out more, you want them to change their vote, or you want to just build public support for opposing them because they're not good on your issues, all of these are ways that all of these are things you can achieve by organizing a town hall or attending a town hall. Okay, so I know this is kind of a complicated decision tree. We're going to take a moment and we're actually going to give a couple examples. Awesome. Okay, so the first example, I'm going to read it and then I'm going to ask you to take 30 seconds to a minute to think about how you would respond to it as an organizer, what you would do in your community, and then I'm going to have you put it in the chat. So here's a scenario. Rep so-and-so is a moderate Democratic member of the House. She has not hosted a town hall in 2025. She voted for the SAVE Act just a few days ago. What do you do? So take a moment, 30 seconds to a minute, write in the chat, what do you do in this situation? How can you use what you've learned about town halls to answer this question? I'm noticing some really interesting ideas in the chat. A lot of people are suggesting hosting a empty chair town hall. Someone also suggests that you can offer a format that might be amenable to them, right? Compromise. We want to talk about democracy issues and voting rights, but we don't need to make this an all-out yelling match. So you can kind of negotiate with their team if that's something that the rep's office is willing to do. If your representative doesn't care less, amazing. You're going to go talk to the people who the representative cares the most about, their constituents, and you're going to make them look bad The thing that the representatives all care about, no matter what, is looking bad in front of their constituents. They might write off a small group of constituents, but the larger group of constituents you have, the less easy it is for your representative to write off. I love it. I see a mock town hall because that really outside the office, that really holds them accountable because it's saying, we know you're in there, right? Like this is a choice. You have an office in the district, you are choosing not to show up when your constituents have questions for you. Somebody asked the question, how important is the press? Especially when you're doing chair actions, but really in all town hall actions, it's really, really important to have the press there, as well as to have your own social media and to capture what's going on. Because what we're doing is not just pressuring them in the moment, although we are pressuring them in the moment, but we're also creating a larger scale of pressure because they're going to get negative press. Awesome. Okay, we're going to go to one more example.
Before you go to that next example, there's one question that was asked earlier that I want to make sure you have a chance to answer. How do you voice your opinion without being removed or arrested? And that question is really germane given what happened at Representative Marjorie Greene's event, her town hall, where people were summarily yanked out and some were tasered. What kind of recommendations do you have about that?
That's a really, really good question. So the first thing I'll say is that only you know what your level of safety is in relationship to taking on risk when it comes to disrupting and doing advocacy. In any advocacy format, when you're following the rules set out by the organizers or the legislators, you're least likely to get removed or to engage in a physical altercation or verbal altercation. When we're suggesting in some of these contexts where you might not have an opportunity to actually ask your question and you might want to stand up and ask a question without being asked, in these contexts, you're violating some of the expectations that the legislator has about the environment, and you're risking either getting removed or being arrested. So, we have this thing we call red actions versus green actions, right? Is there any risk of arrest? I would say in a traditional town hall, if you follow all the expectations of the legislator, we would hope that you have zero risk of arrest. But the reality is in our day and age where these town halls can be very heated and there can be altercations, there's always a level of risk that you have to engage with. Obviously, when you're doing a telephone town hall, there's probably much, much less to none. So what I would say is it's up to you. You have to decide for yourself what you're willing to accept and appropriately assess the risk, right? If you go to an in-person town hall and you don't say anything, you're very unlikely to get arrested. But you also have to approach it from the perspective of how much impact do I want to have? Does saying nothing really have the impact that I want to have? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I know that there's somebody else in the community who's more able to take on risk because they're not a caretaker, for example, and I'm going to support them by taking care of their cat that night if they do get arrested, or prearranging to support their family with food, things like that. Awesome. And we'll answer more questions too. So please feel free to keep them putting in the chat. All right, one more example, and then I'll go back through the chat. Senator Whatsit is a longstanding Republican chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee. He has represented his state for the last 50 years. He hosts one telephone town hall a year in October, which is months ago. He has not made a public statement on the SAVE Act and largely focuses on veterans issues. What do you do? So take a moment and go ahead and write your answer in the chat. Amazing. I'm seeing some answers begin to roll in. I'm going to start answering some of the questions that were in the chat. One question was, are Zoom town halls even effective or really effective? So the answer is it depends on the type, right? It depends if they are open mic or if they're pre-selected. I would say if they're pre-selected questions, it's very challenging in a Zoom town hall format to actually disrupt. And that's a reason that you might need to host your own. Is there any use or importance to introducing yourself in terms of your own background and experience? Absolutely. We don't get into that as much, like exactly what to say during a town hall. But when you're there, you really want to, you have an opportunity to convince or convey to the representative themselves exactly what you care about and why. And they know because you're a constituent that you are one of probably many voters in their district who care and feel the same way. So if you can share those details in order to convey that to them, that makes your testimony even more powerful. So, hey, I'm a veteran and dot dot dot. That's really helpful. Or, I'm a public school teacher and I've taught in this county for 25 years. Or I convene a democracy circle group and we meet once a month and we talk about voting issues and democracy, and we're very concerned about the SAVE Act. These kind of identity questions and background questions can be really helpful for them remembering you and actually taking you seriously. Awesome. I love, somebody in the chat also said begin to speak about the lack of Senator Whatsit's transparency and availability in the community and with the constituency. What I love about this is that you're exactly right, that like town halls are one tool in a toolbox. The reason they can be really powerful is that they can also be like a piece of evidence to use when you're talking to constituents about why Senator Whatsit isn't doing his job. Say, hey, I hosted a town hall. I gave him the opportunity to come. I had 35 people in a room and he decided not to be there. I love that. I like, a lot of people in the chat are talking about using especially affected voices like veterans. In this case, we know that he's really responsive to veterans issues, and having them share how they're affected by the SAVE Act is a really excellent strategy. Trying to go through, there's so many ones in the chat.
One of the questions was how to best advertise a town hall. And what I would say is and please jump in, Jay, but if you're planning on holding your own town hall, don't just do your group. Find some other community organizations who share your values and partner with them. Try to make it as broad a coalition as possible, as you possibly can. I see a lot of back and forth. Be sure to reach out to veterans organizations. Absolutely. But, if you belong, say, to a congregation and you want to hold a town hall, well, see, are there other congregations in the community? Are there nonprofits there? Is there an immigrant rights group that you also want to hold it with? And then you can plan it together and you're assured that you're filling the town hall, and you know that that town hall has been constructed in a way to place on the agenda those questions that are most important to you and the other groups that are in the audience. Now, if you just hold a town hall and you open it up to anybody and everybody, you will be facing your own version of what members of Congress face in an open town hall meeting. So that doesn't mean that people won't come to your town hall because they'll learn about it. There may be some who try to disrupt what you're doing at your town hall. That's a real possibility in this political moment where people are not treating each other with the kind of respect that we would hope. We encourage you, if you are disruptive, to do it in a respectful way and a clear way, and not in a way that ever diminishes someone else, but rather demands accountability. And you have to, as Jay was saying, figure out your own balance and sense of power and purpose when you're doing that. And the great thing is we have Cheryl and Janice here who have just been at town halls to talk a little bit more about their experience too. And I think we're going first to Cheryl. We'd love for you to share your experience with us and just introduce yourself and say a little bit about your town hall experience.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi, yeah, thank you, Noelle. My name is Cheryl. I am from Westminster, Colorado, and my U.S. House Representative is Gabe Evans. He is Republican, and he was newly elected in January. And because I had not seen him, he had not scheduled a town hall, I wanted to reach out to his office and request a town hall. So I called the local district office here in Colorado, and their voicemail recording said, unless you're wanting to talk to a caseworker about a certain issue, please press 2. So I pressed 2, and then that forwarded my call to the DC office. So I wasn't able to get anybody locally, any outreach staff that were here locally. And so I did get a live person at the DC office, which was great. And I asked when a town hall was going to be scheduled. And because this person was not an outreach staff, I don't know if they were just a legislative aide, they indicated that they really didn't know anything about scheduling. They weren't the right person to talk to. And I said, is there anybody in the office that I could talk to about requesting a town hall? And they said, no, not really. So I just plainly asked if Gabe Evans could hold a town hall. And I even admitted that, yes, they're very controversial right now. So maybe just at least a virtual town hall would be great, because I have not seen my representative yet. So they said, okay, we'll pass on your request. And then shortly after, maybe a week after, I did get an email from Gabe Evans saying that there was going to be a phone town hall. So I thought, well, this is better than nothing. And when I got on the phone call, they asked if people wanted to give or ask a question. And so I pushed the button saying, yes, I'd like to ask a question. And this was my first experience with a phone town hall. Somebody interrupted when Gabe Evans was talking, and I couldn't understand this person, and I thought it was a glitch in the phone system. But then I realized after the fact that it was somebody that cut off Gabe Evans to ask me what my question was. And because I just screwed up that whole opportunity to ask a question, I was not able to ask my question. But somebody else did ask a similar question about the SAVE Act, but it was very broad and open-ended, and it did not push the representative to specifically talk about some of the negative issues of the SAVE Act. So they probably picked that out because it made the representative look better anyways. So that is my experience. And I did find out just recently that the Colorado Democrats are hosting an empty chair town hall for Gabe Evans, and they're inviting a Democrat Texas House representative to speak at it. So that's interesting.
Cheryl, I'm going to jump in and first of all say thank you for your persistence. I want to point out there would not have been a town hall without it. I mean, regardless of whether you were able to get that question asked, it was your persistence and your insistence on that line of accountability that made that town hall happen to begin with. And you know what? Sometimes things like this happen to all of us, but what to do for the next time, right? And you were able at least to get a measure of accountability, some response. And I want to just really congratulate you on that, because that took persistence, it took multiple calls, and in this time and place to have been able to make that happen is very significant. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And you just keep at it, because we know at the end of the day, it's not only one interaction. with a lawmaker. It's those interactions over time. And you set it up perfectly. Believe you me, they're going to remember you the next time you call and you say, I think it's time that you had another town hall, or I think you really need to think about your position on this. So thank you so much, Cheryl, for being with us tonight and sharing your experience.
Yes. Thank you, Cheryl. Now we're going to bring up Janice Gay. Janice Gay was at a very positive town hall where not only one representative, but two congressional reps showed up. Janice, welcome and thanks for joining.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I was at a community listening event April the 6th. It was open to the public at a library down in Norfolk, Virginia. I was invited by Network Nova and COVA Coalition to come there. The community people, everybody in the community, local residents, business owners, church leadership, everybody was invited to listen for the congressman to listen to us, which was different. I had never been to a town hall where we get to speak and they listen. It was different. Some of the people that were there in attendance were Congressman Gregory Meeks, Congressman Bobby Scott. We had Senator Angela Williams Graves, Delegate Jackie Glass, Delegate Michael Fagans, Delegate Alex Askew, and a host of others. We were able to stand in line and be able to present whether it was a question or a statement. Amongst the people who were there to speak were college students, military wives, local residents, and even church leadership were in attendance. And they were talking about their concerns and what they wanted to see happen and change. It was very positive because we got a great deal of feedback. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't have a question. I said, I want to talk about some of the things we're already doing on the ground. We're postcarding, we're phone banking, we're already canvassing, we're on college campuses. We're talking and knocking on doors, talking on the phones and knocking on doors. So we're currently already engaging. It was so powerful because it brought together community collaborations, community conversations, and at the end of the day, we were able to network with one another, coming up with strategic plans as we move forward in the upcoming elections. So that was my experience, very positive, very informative, and the response from our legislators was awesome.
Thank you, Janice, so much for that. Thank you very much. Right. I guess we are going to pick up with our presentation, and we want to talk about social media and how that can be used to let people keep informed about your town hall. Rio, take it away.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Great to be with you all. I'm Rio Taswell, and really just building on the conversation this evening and the presentation that Jay gave. Clearly, there's all types of town halls. They can go all different types of ways, but I'd say by and large, town halls can be one of the most effective tools in politics for holding elected officials accountable and helping to shape the narrative around the issues that we care about, educate the public, and ultimately mobilize people to turn out and vote and create change at the ballot box, in the streets, in the media, in their own lives. And it's such a powerful way to be able to bring face to face the constituents with the elected leaders and have those exchanges. And social media can make it exponentially more impactful because you have the opportunity to reach so many more people. So I want to talk a little bit about how we can effectively use social media every step of the process for town halls, not just when you're there live streaming or taking a video, but really from the very beginning. And that starts with promoting the event. So, first, as we've been talking about, you got to figure out who's hosting the town hall, where it is, get all the details. Is there already a way for people to RSVP? If there is, you want to make sure that you are posting that everywhere, all over the major social media platforms that you may already be on: X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, you name it. Any platforms that you want to make sure that you are posting the time, the date, and the location of that town hall. If there's not a way for people to RSVP that you're aware of that's publicly available, create your own. You can use platforms like Mobilize or Eventbrite, or even just a good old Facebook event and invite people that way. It's critical for people to be able to RSVP and for you to encourage people to RSVP. And so post out far and wide. Also, make sure you tag the elected official that you're going to be meeting with or having an empty chair at town hall for in the post. The algorithms will like it. If a prominent page is being tagged, the algorithm may lift it up more, and you'll be able to draw a direct connection between the organizing that you're doing digitally and the reason that you're getting people to turn out. Another good tool for getting more visibility on social media is using relevant hashtags. And there's all different types of hashtags you can use depending on the issue. Of tons of voting rights hashtags these days. If there's a hashtag that's trending, you can jump on. If you want to use a hashtag of your own and encourage other people to use it, they can be a great way to organize and let people know what you're organizing about, and also for people to come and find your content later and potentially uplift it. So it's good to do just a little bit of research on popular hashtags, which can get kind of vary from platform to platform, but doing a little bit of research can potentially get your content seen by a lot more folks by using those hashtags. Next, we want to consider who is in your network that you can mobilize to also promote on social media. So your friends, of course, you want to invite them to not only attend, but encourage them to post about the town hall. If you're connected to any organizations that might have official social media accounts, that can be another great way to reach a much larger audience, provide them with sample copy, sample content that they can post and reach their own networks. And in addition to encouraging people to RSVP, which is probably the most important thing to do, and really asking people, will you be there? Join us to hold Rep so-and-so accountable on this day, RSVP here. You want to share your personal reasons for why you're attending. Talk about why you are inspired, motivated, pissed off, whatever the case may be, to attend this town hall and what you want to hear from this elected official. Prompt people with potential questions that they could ask and that you intend to ask. Really just seed the ground for the conversation that you want to have when people are actually in the room or on the Zoom together during the actual town hall. And using social media can be a great way to do that. And along those lines, you want to educate people as much as you can about the issues that you want to be talked about at that town hall. So post facts, data, content, stories, whatever resources you might be able to come across to help educate people about the SAVE Act, for instance, about voter suppression, voting rights, the ongoing attacks on our democracy in general. There's no shortage of content out there, and finding good visual content, images, videos, articles that include a preview when you post them, all of that can really help engage your audience and increase your visibility and ensure that the algorithm is going to push it out further and wider. And often, especially if you're working with groups like the Center for Common Ground or the Workers Circle or many other groups, there might be a social media toolkit that you can use that'll have lots of prepackaged content, including graphics, videos, and other highly engaging content that you can share along with your RSVP link to get people to sign up to attend. And yeah, there's lots of content that you can, of course, create yourself if you have the skill set and the bandwidth to get creative. That can always go a long way as well, but lots of existing content out there. So that's all before you get there. When you're actually at the town hall, whether it's in the room or on the Zoom, you want to do everything that you can to document it in real time. And this can involve getting someone to live post or live tweet the actual goings on of the town hall, writing down quotes of whatever the elected official is saying, kind of recounting moment by moment what's happening, getting audience reactions, and basically providing a play-by-play over social media of what's happening and really spotlighting the major moments as they unfold so that people can see in real time what's happening, but then also later people can go and amplify those major moments. Again, during the course of all that, you want to make sure that you are tagging the official accounts of the elected official that you're meeting with. Again, this can help the algorithm lift it up to more people and create that direct connection of who you're talking to and why, so that people can understand the significance of this content that they're seeing in their feed. And of course, the holy grail for town halls is video clips. And it's so important that if you're organizing a group of folks to attend a town hall, that you have at least one person who's tasked with preferably live streaming the whole thing. If you're on a platform that supports that, like Facebook and others, Instagram, you can just go live. People can watch at home the whole thing. It'll just turn into a static video after the fact that people can continue to watch, and you can even clip from there. So live streaming is definitely a top priority, but also just regular old video, just getting clips of the questions, clips of the answers, clips of the remarks that you can then package and post later. Also incredibly important. And this is how town halls can really go viral. And there's so many examples of this. I'm sure I don't need to tell you all that this happens all the time. This week, right now, Congress is on recess and town halls are happening, and there's viral moments happening. And you've probably seen the one from the other night with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lots of viral clips of the violent crackdown of the protesters that were at her town hall. Chuck Grassley had some really explosive confrontations with his constituents, asking about his position on Kilmar Abrego Garcia and Doge and other really timely issues. Lots of Republican members in particular are showing up to these town halls and having these really explosive confrontations that then turn into viral clips that then get picked up by the mainstream media. So when something gets a lot of attention online, the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, all the major networks are much more likely to pick it up and then broadcast it, which then reaches far, far, far more people. And it all starts by having somebody in the room recording on their phone or live streaming on their phone. It can end up having exponentially more impact than just the people that are in that room or listening on the Zoom. So then after the end of the town hall, there's a lot more that you can still do to use social media. You can post a recap, talk about the outcomes, what were the reactions of people in the room? How do you feel about the answers or that you got or that you didn't get? Any highlights, any concerns, and encouraging people to comment. What do they think about it? How do they feel about the information that was shared? Of course, you want to make sure that you thank everyone that participated, the people that showed up, the people that are liking and commenting. Showing appreciation for your community can really go a long way, and gratitude encourages future engagement. So you really want to make sure that you're making a point to do that as a part of a wrap up. And another critical thing you want to make sure you do is include a call to action. Is there a clear next step that you can ask people to take beyond sharing and liking the content? Is there a petition? Is there a call-in line that you can encourage people to use to call that member of Congress? Is there another event that you're organizing for that you want to direct people to RSVP? Always want to include what is the next step? What is the next call to action? And if you're getting content that's performing well, you want to make sure that you have that in there so that you can direct people to that. And then finally, I'll just close by saying throughout all of this, you want to make sure that you're being bold. You're maybe being confrontational, especially if it's with a member of Congress who isn't voting the right way, and you want to hold them accountable. But be respectful. This is a public forum, and especially on the internet, nothing ever goes away. So whatever it gets on the internet, it will follow you around for the rest of your life. So you want to make sure that you are conducting yourself in a professional and a respectful way. But again, you want to be direct, you want to be honest, but you want to maintain, a certain level of decorum and make sure that you're not turning people away based off of your own behavior who otherwise might agree with you. Because at the end of the day, you want to get as many people as possible to see it your way, to join your side and work together to hold elected officials accountable. And so I'll pause there.
So very much, Rio. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. As we're getting ready to close tonight, some of my final thoughts, because Center for Common Ground, we do a lot of work in low-income Black communities, where I always explain that every time the federal government cuts anything back, generally it is low-income people, Black, white, Latino, that are hurt first and worst. So if going to town halls, being confrontational is not who you are or your comfort level, there now is going to be so much need in our low income communities. One of the things that our democracy centers do, because they are all in community of color, and our democracy hubs are in the low income part of these communities, is we support food banks. We provide food. We do our own food drives. We do various diaper drives and whatever it is the community tells us that they need. So mutual aid is going to be very, very, very important as we continue going through this administration. It will be critical. Rachel, are you going to talk about democracy circles? I talked about hubs.
I was gonna share the link in the chat. I know we are running up on time, but I will share this in the chat real quick. Democracy circles are our way of building, for you to build power in your community with the people that you know, that are already in your circle that you are already connected to. You can learn more about democracy circles at our website, circle.org/democracy circles. And there's a lot more about democracy circles. I could talk about them for the next hour, but I'm not going to.
We're so glad that we have a number of our Democracy Circle leaders
Yes.
on the call, in fact. And I'm also, a little bird told me, we have some folks from Broward County who are holding a town hall meeting tomorrow. And we want to say, you go get them, Broward County. You go. And we wish you every good thing as you take that step and continue to ensure accountability from your elected officials. That's the way to do it. We're glad you've been here tonight, and we hope you found this town hall effective advocate helpful. I wanted to jump in to emphasize a program that's coming up very quickly that I think you'll be very interested in. Again, Center for Common Ground and Workers Circle are collaborating here, and there are many other co-sponsors, but it's Live from the Front Lines, the fight for our democracy with Ari Berman. I'm going to be interviewing him live. There is going to be ample time for Q&A. Ari is an author. He is a journalist. He is award-winning expert on voting rights and democracy. He has been chronicling our descent into autocracy with wisdom and clarity that has been so helpful to help us see connections between the past and the present and between different parts of this operation. So I really want to encourage you to come, because it's not just going to be about the plight. It's going to be about the fight. And it's going to be about how people like you and me are standing up and demanding the democracy we need. So there's going to be a lot there. Please do plan to join us. Per usual, you'll get a follow-up email with the slides and the recording and lots of resources. Please do share those with others. And next month, when you come to Effective Advocate, bring a friend or two along. Let people know this is a place that they can come to learn, to think, and to be strengthened by community. And we are so grateful that you've been with us tonight doing just that.
Yes. And then I see on our next step slide, we are having a little election in Virginia, and the Virginia primary will be on June 17th. So right now we are running phone banks to Virginia for the primaries. We have what we call a national guided phone bank, where we've got trainers there. If you are new to phone banking with us, or maybe need a little encouragement, they're every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. And we've got another Effective Advocate coming up on May 15th at 7 p.m. So we will see where we are on May 15th. Every day, it seems like we get more bad news, but we are becoming more effective pushing back, and we will not give up without a fight.
So on behalf of the Worker Circle and Center for Common Ground, thanks for being with us tonight. Come on back next month. Thanks to all of our presenters. Thanks to Cheryl and Janice, who shared so eloquently about your town hall meetings. Thank you so much, Rio and Jay. Thank you, Rachel, for piping up about democracy circles. And thank you, everybody, for your excellent questions and your engagement. We're so glad to be in this fight shoulder to shoulder with you. We'll see you on the front lines. Take care, everybody.
All right. Take care, everybody. Good night.